What happened to Tom Brady and his wife, Gisele Bündchen's estate plan after they recently got divorced? In this video, we're going to look at how divorce affects your estate plan and your living trust, and why it's important to update your estate plan and your living trust if you get divorced. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, hit the subscribe button to get notified whenever I post a new video about living trusts. And by the way, my name is Edmund. I am a living trust lawyer. I've helped hundreds of families and I've taught thousands of people how to do it themselves. And I'm excited to share my tips and tricks with you today. If you want to learn the entire process of how to make a living trust without hiring a lawyer, check out my free trust class online at freetrustclass.com. This is especially useful if you're about to get married, or you're recently getting married, or you were recently divorced. You want to make sure that you update your living trust as well as your estate plan. And so in this free trust class, I walk you through the entire process so you can do it the right way without hiring a lawyer. So check it out. The link is on the bottom of this video. Quick legal disclaimer, I'm not your lawyer. I'm not giving you any legal advice. All of this is just information. If you have any legal questions, please talk to a lawyer. So what happened to Tom and Gisele's estate plan after they got divorced? As many of you know, they recently got divorced. The divorce was settled fairly quickly, within days. And so it looks like the reason why they were able to get such a fast divorce settlement was because they had a prenup. So there's one source that said there was an ironclad prenup set down before they got married in 2009. They both have their own separate business entities, so the separation of their wealth wasn't that complicated in the end. The only other major factor was dividing up their massive real property portfolio. And this was from the website Page 6. So when we have a prenup, it's definitely much easier on the spouses as well as the children when divorce happens, because what a prenup is, it's a written agreement that says if we ever get divorced, this is how we divide our assets. So when Tom and Gisele got divorced, that's what happened. They look at their prenup and say, okay, this is mine, this is yours, okay, let's go our separate ways. It's a done deal. That's why it was done in a matter of days and not months or years like other divorces, whether it's celebrity divorces or average people divorces. When we don't have a prenup, it does get messy. It can get messy upon divorce. I'm not a divorce lawyer, but if you are thinking about getting divorced or thinking about getting married, you might want to consider a prenup. I always tell people this, when we get a prenup before marriage, it's not being cold, it's not starting the marriage on the wrong foot. It's really about being mindful of your children, especially your children. If you get divorced, you don't want to be fighting over things during the divorce process. And so having a prenup is actually something that is wise, something that is advisable, because more than half of marriages in the US end up in divorce. So because Tom and Gisele had a prenup, they were able to divide everything equally. So you might be asking, okay, so what happened to Tom and Gisele's estate plan after they divorced? Well, I don't have the inside scoop, unfortunately, but given what I know about the law, given what I know about the fact that they had a prenup, this is probably what happened. Their will or their living trust, if they were to do it together, was probably revoked. When it comes to estate planning, you can have multiple trusts. So for example, you can have a joint trust between husband and wife. You can also have separate trusts just for yourself, for your separate properties. And so in Tom and Gisele's situation, they probably had multiple trusts, given the size of their estate, whether it's for asset protection, whether it's for estate tax planning. They probably have multiple trusts. And so their estate planning attorneys probably updated those, especially now that Tom is not married to Gisele, for example. Tom probably doesn't want to leave his assets to her. And so And they probably updated their living trust or their wills. Some people only have a will, depending on which state you live in. But in their situation, because they own multiple properties, they own businesses, they probably had living trusts and other types of trusts if they received good counsel, which I'm sure they did. So they would have updated their living trust or their wills, and they would have revoked any joint trust that they had. Now, in terms of their medical directives and power of attorneys, they probably had those redone as well. A medical directive says that, hey, when I'm in the hospital, I'm incapacitated, who can make my decisions for me? Tom probably had Gisele. Gisele most likely had Tom do it for her, and so they probably updated that by removing each other as the healthcare directives so that they can have other people that they trust most to make their medical decisions if they are ever incapacitated. Same thing with power of attorneys. In Tom and Gisele's situation, they probably did not name each other as power of attorneys, especially if they had a prenup. And so they probably had their estate planning attorney relook at that to see if there's any changes that needs to be made with their power of attorneys. Power of attorneys are very important because it's a legal document that says if I'm disabled or incapacitated and I can't make my own financial decisions, who's going to help me make my financial decisions? And so it's definitely not themselves anymore after they divorced, and so they would have had their estate planning attorneys look into that. And also, if they owned any joint financial accounts, all of those were probably closed and the assets were moved into a different account. So for example, if they had a joint account for their living expenses, then that account probably would have closed. Any checking, any savings, any investment accounts, any other types of financial accounts that they own together were most likely closed down. It doesn't look like there were any joint accounts, especially that a prenup. They probably separated everything, and so it was fairly easy to get that resolved as well in their case. And also, they would have updated all their beneficiaries on their life insurance and retirement plans. So beneficiaries are people who are going to receive the money on those accounts, on those policies when you pass away. So for example, if they had life insurance, they probably took each other off as primary beneficiaries. If they had retirement plans like 401ks and IRAs, then they most likely would have taken themselves out as well. And just like the article that I quoted earlier, all their real properties were equally divided or divided according to their prenup, especially if they owned property together. For example, if they own their primary residence together, 50-50 or whatnot, that would have been divided after the divorce. And so those are the assets that would be divided. Those are the things that most of the time people would do once they get divorced. And another question I want to answer for you guys is, why is it important to update your estate plan if you get divorced? The obvious answer is so that your ex-spouse can't get their hands on your assets when they die. Because most people, when they get married, most people don't have a prenup. Most people would create a joint living trust together, or they would put their spouse on their will when they get married, right? If I die, I want my spouse to get all my assets. Well, if you don't update that, there's a chance that your ex-spouse could inherit everything that you own. Most of these documents will say that if there's legal separation or if there is a divorce, then the spouse is automatically disinherited. Okay, so most living trusts and wills will say that. And so there's sometimes and most of the time, the opportunity for the deceased spouse's family to argue against the ex-spouse receiving the assets when there's a clause like that. But in any case, it's just cleaner, it's just safer to remove your spouse from your will, your living trust, when you get divorced, so that it doesn't cause that confusion if that does happen. And a second reason would be so that your ex-spouse can't control you So for example, after divorce, you probably don't want your spouse making your medical decisions or your financial decisions when you're disabled or incapacitated, right? So removing them in your power of attorney, your healthcare directive, is so important. And also updating your trust to remove your ex-spouse as the trustee of the trust. The trustee is the manager of the trust assets upon your passing or incapacity. You don't want your ex-spouse managing those your assets for you. And also, as your executor in your will, you don't want your ex-spouse to be the executor of your will as well. So all of those documents should be updated. And also, you have to look at your documents even if your spouse is not on any of those documents. You want to look at what friends and what family members you've put on as your power of attorney and healthcare directive. A lot of times when we get divorced, our families separate, our friends even separate, right? Some friends choose the wife, some friends choose the husband. So you want to look at your estate plan, your healthcare directive, your power of attorney, your will, your trust, for example, and make sure that those friends or family members that you've selected as your fiduciaries to make decisions for you if you're incapacitated, or as your trustee when you pass away, you want to make sure that those people are still on your side, right? And so look at it and verify that these are the people that you want. All right, so that's some of the reasons why you should update your estate plan if you ever get divorced. So you might be here because you might be thinking about, hey, do I need a will? Do I need a trust? I'm getting married, or I'm getting divorced, or I just got married, or I just had a child. What do I do? How do I make sure that my loved ones receive my assets when I pass away, and that the people I trust most will be in charge when I am disabled or I pass away? So I recommend always that you educate yourself before you hire a lawyer, before doing it yourself. If you want to set up your own estate plan yourself, educate yourself, learn as much as you can yourself before you hire a lawyer or do it yourself. And if you want to learn more, I created a free living trust class that teaches you how to make your own living trust the right way without hiring a lawyer, so you can protect your house, your money, your assets from probate court with confidence and without making mistakes. I'm not here to sell you my legal services. My number one goal is to make sure you keep more money in the family and give you that peace of mind that you deserve. So click the link in the description below to register for this free class so you can do your trust and your entire estate plan without hiring a lawyer if you didn't want to. Now, before I go, I want to leave you with this Bible verse. It's very easy to judge people. It's very easy to speculate about other people's divorces, relationships, marriages, right? But we really want to look at ourselves first, especially when we're married or we have a partner. We want to figure out, hey, how do I love my spouse or my partner more? How do I have a deeper relationship, a deeper connection with my spouse, especially my spouse? And so I want to leave you with the words of Jesus. Here in Matthew 19:5, Jesus quotes the Bible in Genesis. And Jesus says, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Okay, so Jesus is describing marriage here in this verse, and I want you to focus on the two words, one flesh. When we as a married couple, husband and wife, are joined in marriage, we become one flesh. And a lot of times, most of the time actually, when we have arguments, when we grow apart from our spouses, when we no longer love them, or when problems arise in our marriage, it's because we've forgotten that we are one flesh. And so I don't know what happened in Tom and Gisele's situation. I don't know if Tom Brady's decision to play another season of football contributed to their divorce. But I do know that because they were not one flesh, because the both of them had different opinions about how to live and for example, what to do with their lives, what to do with their family, with their kids, with their assets, with their careers, that divorce happened. Because divorce is essentially you're splitting, right? You're splitting from your spouse, and so you're no longer one flesh. So the reason why I'm highlighting one flesh is because this is something that my wife and I have been learning, especially recently, is that we have to be one flesh in everything in our lives, meaning we have to be in agreement, okay? In agreement with everything, our finances, our careers, our the way that we raise our son, our relationships with other people, our health, every single thing. We need to be one flesh in one agreement as husband and wife, or else that's where arguments come in. And then spiritually, this is where the devil comes in to steal, kill, and destroy our marriages. The Bible says that when the church is separated, it's not in one accord, that's when the church is going to fall. Same thing with marriage. If we are not in agreement, husband and wife, we're going to get divorced, or we're just going to be in an ugly relationship, ugly marriage for the rest of our lives. And sadly, our kids will learn from us, will see from the fruits of our labor, and they're going to replicate us when they become older and they have their own spouse and family. And so there's ripple effects of not being in one flesh. So I encourage all of you to be in one flesh, one agreement, and agree with everything with your spouse. And I want to give you a really cool example of what God's been doing in my life and my wife Amy's life. This is a really good example of being in agreement as being one flesh and husband and wife. My wife has been praying about her career, praying about, God, what do you want me to do with my career? She's an executive at startups, and so that's her world, that's her field. And so she was hearing from God, and she felt like God was moving her away from being an executive at startups and moving her more towards being a mom and ministering. And so Amy and I were not in agreement with that. And my position was, no, you should definitely continue to work, because having a double income is great. We can have more so that we can give more and also provide more for our family, for our son. And so it doesn't make sense to stop what she's doing to pursue something else that's completely different. And so she and I were not in agreement. And when that happened, I would say things like, are you sure that's what God said? You should pray more about it. And so when the disagreement came in, our relationship took a hit. And not only that, spiritually, it opens up the door for the devil to come in to steal, kill, and destroy our relationship, destroy our health, destroy our finances. And so we saw the ripple effects of that disagreement in our marriage. And one day I was praying, and I heard from God. God said, the only reason why you don't want Amy to quit her career at the moment and follow me is because you don't trust me. So God was revealing my heart that I did not trust God to provide, that my worship, my God, was in Amy's job. It was in money. And so that's why Jesus says you can't serve two masters. You can either serve God or money, or God and something else, is because you're pulled one direction or the other. And so my God was the provider that was Amy's job. However, our provider is God, right? He is Jireh. He is our provider. That's what the Bible says. And so I forgot about that. I trusted her job more than I trusted God himself. And so that really convicted my heart. So that night, I told Amy what God said. And we came together in prayer. I think we spent like 2 hours in prayer, and I was there just repenting. We were repenting, and the more we repented, the more we asked God for forgiveness. Other things started coming up in our relationship, in our lives, some terrible sins that we were committing, and so it opened up the floodgates of our hearts to be softened by God and to ask for forgiveness, so that God can come into our lives and do what he does best, which is cleanse us and give us much more and much better than what we try to hold on to. And so once we surrendered to God being our provider, and then Amy now has the peace to go on doing the things that God has put on her heart, now our marriage has been restored. Everything in our lives are restored. And so that was one thing that was holding us up, not just our marriage, but also our lives and our relationship with God. So that's one example of having a good marriage, is being in agreement, truly acting as one flesh, as husband and wife. So that's my prayer for you out there, that you are one flesh with your husband, with your wife, and that you guys can make decisions together. Don't compromise, right? But make decisions together as husband and wife. All right, so God bless you all. If you have any questions about this topic, please ask me in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer them for you in my next video. God bless you.